Have you ever had a game that you couldn't put down, even though none of your friends even played it, much less talked about it? For me, that game was Jet Car Stunts.
Oh my god. Yes, bro, yes. That's a new PV. That's a new PV, bro. Holy shit, another PV, bro. Another PV. So many hours for this, bro. 10,000 attempts on this game.
Jet Car Stunts was released in late 2009 to critical acclaim and was quickly recognized as one of the best iPhone games of its time. Later in 2014, the developers would re-release the game to consoles and also port it to PC, expanding its reach and, more importantly, adding online leaderboards. From that point on, improvement was visible. Players could see exactly where they stood, and for a while, that was enough to spark competition. The community that formed was small, scattered, and almost entirely undocumented. What remains of it today exists only in fragments, old YouTube uploads with a few hundred views, Steam forum threads with 2 or 3 replies, speedrun.com page with only a handful of submissions for each level. There was never a central hub, never a shared understanding of mechanics, just isolated players chasing lower numbers. It lacked the push that most competitive games rely on. There's no fanfare for a new record. What kept runners coming back was not acclaim within the community because, well, there wasn't one. Most of the categories on speedrun.com couldn't even be loosely considered competitive. This raised an interesting question. How low would players push a record simply for the love of the game? Jet Car Stunts has dozens of tracks across multiple categories. 5 tutorial tracks, 26 platforming tracks, 11 time trials, and 8 collector stages. But the track at the center of this story is the very first one in the platforming section, and in my opinion, the most iconic track in all of Jet Car Stunts, Very Easy A. And almost everything about it is deceptive. The name, the difficulty, and even the leaderboard players rely on to measure progress. The reason many runners, myself included, were drawn to this track is because of how it plays. Very Easy A is short, and it's an outlier in a game that usually emphasizes resource management. One of Jet Car Stunt's main standout features at the time of its release was the titular jet engine strapped to the back of your car. That jet introduced a resource not present in many other racing games of its type. The jet fuel slowly depletes as you boost, and it only refills when you cross a checkpoint. On most tracks, this mechanic forces players to carefully manage their fuel, conserving it for the large jumps and longer gaps that define much of the game. Very Easy A is different. Because the distance between checkpoints is so small, fuel management almost disappears. You can, and for competitive time must, hold boost for nearly the entire run, only ever releasing at very specific and calculated moments. This combination is what makes the track so addicting. The constant speed and tight corners ensure that the player is always engaged. There's no section that feels safe, nothing that feels automatic even after tens of thousands of attempts. On speedrun.com, it's the only track with more than 5 submissions, and it was one of the only tracks that appeared fully optimized. What makes Very Easy A, well, not easy, is the same thing that makes it fun. The track begins with a straight that encourages a perfect line into the first turn. The first turn then introduces one of the core mechanics of the track and the rest of the game, drifting. Almost all later mechanics exist to smoothly transition back into this idea. A good landing is meaningless if it can't flow smoothly into a drift. To maintain speed while still making the corner, you are forced to drift. Similar to other racing games, drifting the corner allows the car to take a smoother line and maintain more speed as opposed to a sharp, full traction turn. Turn 1 exits directly into the first of 3 checkpoints, and from that point forward, the difficulty ramps up immediately. To preserve as much speed as possible off the ramp following checkpoint 1, you need a precise wall tap combined with a brief brake tap, releasing boost just long enough to redirect the car without losing momentum. The reason for the brake tap here is because braking in Jet Car Stunts allows you additional air control, which means the brake tap isn't just slowing you down, it's adjusting your trajectory mid-flight. These mechanics combine to let the car redirect off the wall and angle downward just enough to regain traction for the next turn, which carries you into the second checkpoint. This wall tap is not to be overlooked. In my 10,000 plus attempts on the track, I'd say this is where most runs came to die. Swerve into the wall too late and too sharp and you lose speed and get the wrong angle. Hit it too early and you just fly off the track. For this wall tap, there's no precise visual cue to aim for on the low poly surface of the track, so it became a feeling. You hug the edge as close as possible, and then at the last second on the ramp, feather the stick to the left to make the back wheels hit the wall, and at the same time tap brake and release boost for a fraction of a second. If done right, the car will redirect down at a soft angle and you will be able to correct minor mistakes in the air and hopefully land smoothly into turn 2. Turn number 2 was deceptive at first. Due to my experience in prior racing games, I assumed the optimal line was tight, hugging the edge. I even ended up saving clips where I took the turn millimeters from the edge, thinking that was the optimal strategy. Over time, after watching Ghost pull ahead due to a wider line on the turn, I realized my mistake. Because of the long flight that follows turn 2, it's better to set up wide and gradually cross from the left side of the track to the right, to give yourself as much room as possible to take turn 3. Turn 3 is just as sharp as the previous 2 turns, and on top of that, it's approached at maximum speed following the long flight from checkpoint 2. There's very little room for adjustment. You hit the track only moments before needing to react. Getting the line wrong here destroys the run. Following turn 3, you get a short breath, maybe half a second before you must set up for the second and final wall hit before the finish. This wall hit works on the same principles as the one after turn 1, but now the stakes are higher. The entire run rides on this difficult sequence of inputs. Countless clips in my Jet Car Stunts folder are just me choking here. Sometimes nerves get the better of me and I mistime the wall tap. Earlier, when I was still learning the track, I'd play it too safe, only for my personal best to catch up with me in the final moments. Like I'm sure was the case for many runners, I didn't start out trying to beat the number 1 time. I was looking through old games on my Xbox when I found Jet Car Stunts, and remembered how I used to play it back in late 2015. I remembered how much the controls stood out to me, even with my limited experience with other racing games. I'd improved a lot in those racing games since then, and I was confident I could set a new record, and maybe even break top 100 on the leaderboards. I started grinding. It was casual at the time, I never expected to get anywhere near top 10. Despite this, I was still steadily improving. I got my time all the way down to a 9.95, top 50 at least. It was then that I took the time to scroll to the top of the leaderboard to see what I was up against. It looked beatable. After that, I moved from playing on Xbox to my PC, mostly for convenience, but I hooked up an Xbox controller so the fundamentals stayed the same. On my PC, I got serious about my attempts. 19.9, 19.5, 19.26, 19.16, and then my first sub 19, an 18.79. Tenths and hundreds shaved off run after run until I got this attempt. It was an 18 flat. I had beat what I thought to be the world record at the time, but the PC leaderboard didn't agree. I wasn't first, not even second, no. I was all the way down in 5th. Here I started to do some research. I pulled up the speedrun.com page, and again I saw that my record was lower than the best time on there, an 18.26. With a little more digging, I found that the 18.26 time was for the iOS version, and for the 2014 version, the one I was playing, the best time was a 17.96. I almost gave up right there. I'd been so happy with my 18 flat, and a sub 18 seemed almost impossible. I watched the run hoping to find a mistake or anything I could improve on, but as of then it seemed above my skill ceiling. I didn't give up though. I made myself a rule. As long as I could see something, any one little thing on my PB that could be improved, I would keep going. I didn't have to see the complete path to the record just yet, but I could keep whittling down my run. I never stopped seeing things to improve my PB. I kept doing run after run, night after night, until on Thursday, February 5th, 2026, I got this run. I hadn't beat it, I had only tied it. It didn't even feel like an achievement. I just put my head in my hands and sighed. I didn't even want to submit the run because someone else had already done it. Similar to when I first saw Ultima's 17.96, I almost gave up right there. I had put in so many hours and so many attempts for it to end in a tie, and even if I did submit it, Ultima would still hold the record because he had done it first. Despite everything, I kept going. I watched back my run and saw that I had lost time in the landing before turn 3. I had an unintentional wall hit before the final intentional one, and my end landing was all over the place. Maybe back then I couldn't see any improvements on Ultima's 17.96, but now I had my own time and I could see what I needed to do. I kept grinding, and eventually I had it. My perfect run. Everything was exactly how I imagined. An early lock onto the line for turn 1, a smooth drift around the corner, a near perfect wall hit into a smooth landing for turn 2, a beautiful drift that allowed me to set up for the flight that would land into turn 3, and then I finished it all with that fated one last wall hit on the final ramp before crossing the finish line, 3 hundredths ahead of Ultima 152's 17.96. I had done it, but something was off. I waited for the run to upload to the leaderboard, and it was number 4 in the world. I had only gone up 1 place. This is where I started to doubt things. Anything much lower than a 17.9 seemed almost inhuman. Despite my doubts, I kept going, and I did end up beating my own time with a 17.88. But to my horror, it was still number 4. I looked everywhere, but I could find no recorded proof of these top 3 times, and even more damning, ever since I beat Ultima 152, the game had not been giving me any new, better ghosts to race against. And all the time I had been grinding, I always had 2 ghost cars, my current PB and someone from the leaderboard who was slightly better than me. First it was Ranger 07H, then Zikmorph, then Emery, then Soyoung, then finally Ultima 152. But ever since I passed Ultima, there were no more ghosts. All I had was Sleepy, who had a 30+ second time and didn't even boost in the start. Looking even further, I found Ultima's YouTube channel, and in the description of one of his videos I saw that he had the same problem on the same track. After beating all the ghosts the game had to give, he was given a slower one, and he came to the same conclusion as me, that the top 3 times are probably cheated. It was annoying to see that number 4 in the game, but I had taken the track as far as I could at the moment, and with me being pretty sure the other runs were cheated, I lacked motivation to put in even more hours and attempts. I don't want to end this video on a sour note, because my own time with Jet Car Stunts didn't end that way. After driving the record time, I actually ended up finding Ultima 152 on Steam and reaching out to him. He was kind enough to allow me to interview him for the video, and during our conversation he let me know about the Jet Car Stunts Discord server. I couldn't believe I had missed this. The whole time I thought the community had all but abandoned the game, but it turns out it was right here the whole time. A small group of dedicated speedrunners who loved the same game just as much as I did. I don't much care that it says I'm 4th in the game, because now, to the people that matter, I do have the best time. GG Ultima 152, and thank you.